And welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from talkTV. So pop the kettle on, this is the Royal Tea. I'm Daisy McAndrew. On the show this week, portraits for all. Is the government really giving everyone free pictures of the King? Plus, find out which royal would rather watch the coronation on the box. And talking of the coronation, it's only a month away now, and we still don't know if Harry and Meghan are going to be there. Joining me to discuss all that and much more, royal commentator and talkTV regular Afua Hagan, the Sun's royal editor Matt Wilkinson, and the royal editor of the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Now, King Charles has for the first time signalled his support for more research into the royal family's historical links with slavery after the emergence of a document showing his predecessor's stake in a slave trading company. Afua, Buckingham Palace says Charles takes this issue very, very seriously. They've also said that he is giving his blessing to more research on this matter. What's the significance of that, and where might this story take us? How might it end?
Well, this is hugely significant because this particular document that was dug up by a historian who's doing some research into a book about the royal family's links to slavery shows a transfer of £1,000 in shares to King William III from Edward Colston. And Edward Colston, of course, we know is the notorious slaver, I think we can call him.
And the one whose statue was
in Bristol,
dramatically brought
yes,
down.
in 2020. And so the fact that this shows an actual document showing transfers of shares from a company that enslaved people from the continent of Africa to the royal family shows in black and white direct links between the royal family and profit from enslaving people. Now, this is something that we've always known and suspected for so long, but this particular document in black and white is very, very damning. Now, like you said, King Charles has said in the past that he, has what a stain enslaving people has been on the world, that his distress over it. He talks about it in Ghana at Port Elamina, where slaves used to go through this tiny, tiny door, enslaved people that were taken from Ghana. There's a very, very significant port that he spoke at in November 2018. And then last year in Rwanda as well, he talked about it as well, that it was a deep stain, his deep distress and sorrow. There's never been an apology from the royal family for enslaving people, for profiting for that, for the fact that their wealth is built on enslaving people. And there needs to be an apology. There needs to now be an acknowledgement that we were part of this, we made our fortune from this, and we are sorry, because it doesn't tie in with the multicultural countries that we deem to reign over. And we also need to have real, proper discussion, sensible discussion about reparations, because enslaving people from a continent, the brain drain, the loss of family, the loss of earnings for those people, and the profits that the royal family gain from that is something that absolutely needs to be addressed in a sensible fashion, and in a fashion that remunerates the countries that enslaved people were taken from.
Matt, what do you think the attitude of the royals behind closed doors is to this issue? Is it something they want to brush under the carpet? Is it something they want to talk about openly? Reparations, is that really going to, could that possibly happen?
I think it's quite obvious they do not want to brush under the carpet. They're very happy to talk about it. As you say, Charles did speak about it in Ghana, but also William spoke about it in Jamaica. He spoke about his profound sadness about what happened, and they're very keen to get it out in the open and talk about the history. I mean, this project's incredibly significant, I think. And it comes recently, we were told that Charles was having open discussions about slavery. So he was actually behind the scenes having discussions with academics, with people who knew about the history, to see what he could and couldn't do. And there was talk in the past that he wanted to have, like we have a National Holocaust Memorial Day, that he wanted a national day to kind of sear it into the consciousness of the public. And you think, well, it's a great idea, and what can he do? And that's something that he has chosen to, hopefully push forward in the next couple of years.
And Russell, this isn't just about historical ties to slavery. Of course, particularly to a lot of the younger generation, there is a stain on the royal family at the moment that perhaps they are racist now because of all the stories that have come out about Meghan Markle particularly. So this is something that the royal family presumably needs to tackle.
Definitely. I think both raising perfect points about how it is very, very much in the open. It's got to be front and centre of his reign. And I think King Charles is looking at what his legacy will be. Of course, he's not going to have as long as a reign as his mother. So he's got a very short window of time in order to make that difference. And those conversations that he is having, that potential for the day of commemoration, I think, and remembrance of what so many people did go through. And of course, the conversations are happening every day. I mean, in Jamaica, the discussions about becoming a republic, the discussion on the backdrop of that, the reparations of slavery, needs to be tackled. And I think the next time that the royal family do go, depending on who it is, they will have to answer those questions.
And I think what we're going to talk about this weekend now, because it's the royal family's first Easter, of course, without the Queen, and it'll also mark the first time the Prince and Princess of Wales will take all three children, including little Louis, to the traditional Easter Sunday service at St George's Chapel. What could possibly go wrong? And on Maundy Thursday, the King and Queen Consort undertook another first in their own right, handing out Maundy money at York Minster. Matt, obviously they did do this last year, but on behalf of the Queen. So this is now the first time that the King has handed out Maundy money as the monarch. What are the coins? What's the significance? What's it all about?
Well, we talk about the king looking towards the future and what he can do, you know, for his legacy, but he's also looking back into centuries of royal regalia here. It started back in 1210 when King John first did it in Yorkshire, in Knaresborough, and the idea it's to do with the Last Supper where Jesus washed pensioners' feet, and so they provide coins to historically pensioners, but it's local people who have carried out good acts in the local community. And it's a coin, or it's 2 coins, 4 coins in total for every 74 people marking the King's age. So you've got coins to represent the hospitality and gift of food from the monarch, the generosity, but also touching on what we were talking about earlier, there's also coins to commemorate not just his age, but also the 75th anniversary of the Windrush, the arrival of the Windrush, so they're touching on that. The only thing I'll say about it is these are specially minted coins, and it's a lot cheaper now because obviously the coin, you know, they're only 74 compared to what we had 90s back in the day. But it's something that, you know, he's keen to keep going. It's now, the Queen changed the rules and it travels around the country now. It used to just be in London and now in York today. And I think, as I say, he's very keen to continue these traditional parts of his kingship.
And Russell, I'm guessing for picture editors and royal editors like yourself, Easter provides lots of copy, lots of photographs of the royal family, and this year you're going to have little Louis as well.
Yeah, well, it's stole the show during the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee. I think it's really something that people are gasping to see, the whole family coming together. There's been a lot of scandal and infighting of this family, and the chance for the coronation, starting a new era. What do the family represent? And I'm sure we'll see.
Yeah, well, I think we'll all be watching for Louis's behaviour, or bad behaviour, or good behaviour. Now, moving on, new government plans to offer everyone portraits of the King have proved a little controversial. Oliver Dowden, the Cabinet Office Minister, said the move was part of plans to celebrate the new reign, but one critic said ministers were losing the plot amid the cost of living crisis and shrinking Whitehall budgets. This is costing £8 million, and we're told, Russell, that every government building, you know, official building is going to get one of these portraits. I can see why it's sticking in the craw of some people. Having said that, we've always had pictures of the monarch in sort of town halls and places like that. Is it such a big deal?
Yeah, I think it is. It's certainly worth the conversation because, as Matt said earlier, the King has to look forward but also have an appreciation to the history. And there is certain precedent here that we've always had pictures of the monarch in local government buildings, police stations, schools. And this money would have been put aside for this to happen. However, in a cost of living crisis, £8 million is an awful lot of money. The government are saying that they can't afford to give teachers, nurses, our public servants proper pay rises, and with the backdrop of that, it doesn't fit well, I think.
I think it's slightly unfortunate. This clearly was a government decision, and yet the criticism is being aimed at the royal family. Isn't that a little bit unfair?
Not really. I think, like Russell so rightly said, in a cost of living crisis, people at this point don't really care where the money is coming from. They just don't want £8 million to go towards pictures of King Charles III going out to every public building when you have people in the passport office on strike, teachers, nurses. There's a real feeling that that £8 million could be put to better use. Now, if we do want these pictures to go out and we do want a picture of the monarch in government buildings, town halls and, you know, whatever, hospitals, whatever, why don't the royal family pay for it? There's already been £100 million shelled out for the coronation.
Well, we don't know. So the
it's going to be
between 50 and 100. So it's quite a big gap.
It's a huge amount of money, whatever it is. And I think another £8 million on pictures. The government buildings that will receive them are being told they're getting them for free, but obviously there's postage and packaging and a frame and all the rest of it.
People are more acutely aware of the royal family's finances now that they may have not been in future in past generations, and with the non-tax paid on the inheritance that King Charles has just received on the Queen's fortune of £650 million, then it's definitely worth the conversation as people become more educated.
But let's not be killjoys here. I'm sure there's lots and lots of people who would like a picture and a portrait of our head of state and the King, who does a lot for our community, does a lot for the country, does a lot for British PLC and stuff like that. There's a lot. Let's not be killjoys. A lot of people want these pictures, want these portraits in their buildings, and I don't see a problem with it, quite frankly.
But shouldn't the royal family pay for it rather than the government pay for it?
Well, it's a government project, so if the royal family said that we want portraits of the King in every building, then of course they'll pay for it, but the government have said we're going to put these portraits in every building.
I would love if everybody had a portrait of me in their building. I think that would really brighten up a lot of offices, but I will pay for that. I mean, I think a £5. Yeah.
7.9 million.
I think at £5 million, I'll send out a picture of myself to everyone.
We'll make it happen.
You've heard it.
It's a good plan.
Now, as the coronation draws nearer every week, we'll update you with all the latest news and announcements coming from the palace. This is Coronation Check-In. Now, the first glimpse of the Coronation Invitation shows us the official use of Queen Camilla, marking the transition from the title of Queen Consort. And her grandchildren will be among the pages at Westminster Abbey, alongside the King's grandson, Prince George. So lots to get our teeth stuck into. Let's just talk about the fact that Camilla has gone from consort to the Queen. I mean, thinking back to when they got married, she was going to be Princess Consort, so she's gone through a few titles, or a few prospective titles. Matt, what does this really mean as far as Camilla is concerned, as far as Charles is concerned, and will the public take this to heart, or is it going to stick in the craw?
Well, two things. I think it shows that Charles has got what he wants. I think Charles wanted Camilla to be Queen. I think she, in many ways, from what we've seen in the last 15, 20 years, she has deserved it. She's put her head down, she's worked, she's been with Charles, she's supported him, she's enabled him to become the king that he is now. She hasn't spoken out, she hasn't really put a foot wrong. Whether people will accept her, I think there are people from a certain age, like my mum, for instance, she's not my queen. I was getting comments on when I posted it on Twitter. Because they support Diana. They still, because you know, I think there's enough time now. Is in 1997, 1990 that Diana died. It was a long, long time ago. But there are a lot of people that still remember what happened. Remember the journey that Camilla's made from being the third woman in a marriage to, as you say, marrying, becoming Princess Consort, Queen Consort, and now to become Queen. That's quite a journey, and people remember the 90s.
Well, it's a remarkable transition of what she's been
PR
gone through.
exercise.
A PR masterclass, really, because we've come a long way of the days that she was being chased around supermarkets and people screaming in her face. And as Matt says, she should be commended for rolling her sleeves up, getting her head down, very much behind the scenes. I mean, look at the topics that she's tackled recently. Domestic violence in women. It was absolutely unheard of, unthinkable for a member of the royal family to be discussing that. We know about Kate's been doing a lot of stuff with early years, but Camilla's work with literacy within children has gone under the radar a lot of the time, and it's a fantastic project.
And osteoporosis.
Absolutely, yeah, and things that she has personal experience, family experience with. So again, I think it's a generational divide here. I don't think the younger generation are fairly ambivalent about it. They'll probably say, well, surely she should be the Queen if he's the King. It won't be that much of a discussion. But yeah, it's certainly very interesting to see the
I mean, Afua, just picking up on what Matt was saying, this is obviously what the King has always wanted. He clearly, loves Camilla, wants her to get the respect that he thinks she deserves. My view is, we know the King can be quite grumpy, and Camilla seems to be the one person who can de-grump him, ungrump him, cheer him up. And so if making her Queen is going to make him happier, in my view, a happy monarch is a better monarch, so I'm all in favour of that.
I mean, she 100% deserves the crown for putting up with that level of grumpiness, like 1,000,000%. But like Russell said, it's an absolute PR masterclass. Like, this is genuinely teach classes in how this happened. It's incredible.
In her rehabilitation.
Absolutely. From being, the mistress to the Queen. You couldn't even write it.
As well.
Yeah, 26 years. And in 1997, us having a discussion about Charles ascending to the throne with Queen Camilla by his side, when his approval rating was in single digits, we would all have been hysterical. We'd have been laughing because it was so far from any sort of imagination. And yes, if we want to get down to the bare bones of it, the word queen comes from an old English word quan, which means wife of the king. So if we're just getting down to the technicalities, she is the queen. Yeah. She's Queen Camilla. It's interesting what you said about your mum, because my mum said exactly the same thing. Not my queen. My mum's like huge Princess Diana fan, also a huge fan of Queen Elizabeth II. And I think, in the days after the Queen died, I think all of us really had issues of what do we call Camilla, Queen Consort, and it doesn't roll off the tongue. I think for a lot of people it still doesn't roll off the tongue.
And of course that's what the palace said. They are now saying, and whether they're rewriting recent history, they're saying they wanted her to be Queen Consort in those immediate few months after the Queen died, because going from the Queen being Queen Elizabeth to the Queen being Camilla was just too much of a jolt. It was too shocking for most of us. And so having a bit of a transition where she was the Queen Consort and then she becomes the Queen
and
after the coronation.
It's been drip fed as well. We saw that the Queen's reading room was quietly slipped out, and then it becoming a bit more palatable. I think the people who are going to have problems with it are people like another generation of our parents.
And of course that generation will also have problems with the fact that the Queen is a divorced woman, because that's a struggle for many people. But of course that brings us to the second element that we found out this week, because we've got very much this her family, as in her grandchildren, being involved now officially, and Charles's grandchildren being involved officially. That's very new. Traditionally pages would have been a role that would have been given, rather like Camilla chose to have some friends rather than duchesses as her ladies in waiting. She's doing things her own way again, isn't she?
Well, it's kind of the sort of interpretation of a modern monarchy. And what does it mean? I mean, the term blended family has been used as well, and that's very, very modern, that terminology being used in this archaic institution. But it is that because Camilla's chosen 3 of her grandchildren, a great nephew as well, to be alongside some of the pages of honour. We still don't know what her other 2 granddaughters are going to be performing some sort of duty, we imagine. But I think, again, like you said, it would be normally a position for the nobility.
Yes,
and
for the proper aristos.
Yes, and the fact that they've sort of been sidelined, and we're going to see a few more normal people in this coronation is probably quite a good thing.
Some of the details. I didn't realise that the pages have uniforms, outfits that are handed down, and so you can only be a page if you fit into those.
5'6".
Yeah, these uniforms are handed down generation to generation. So you're chosen, but you have to be the right shape and the right size to fit into them. But it'll be amazing to see that those, as you said, the blended sort of modern royal family coming together with the 2 sides.
But a modern royal family is sort of juxtaposed with this ancient ceremony that the outfits have been handed down since like 9 BC or whatever, in this really archaic almost occasion.
Well, we were promised that it would reflect, or it would pay tribute to the history and the traditions of the royal family, but also reflect the more 21st century modern makeup, and this is an example of that totally.
And we've seen a new official photograph released this week of Camilla and Charles. Camilla very resplendent in blue, taken by the photographer who's going to be the official photographer for the coronation. What do we make of the new snap?
I mean, they look happy and relaxed, great in blue. Blue looks gorgeous on both of them. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice prelude to the coronation, I think.
And Matt, what about the design of the invitation, which we've seen this week? Very floral, lots of flora and fauna, very Charles, very green.
It is. It looks like an English meadow. You know, it looks like a spring kind of garden you might see out the window at Highgrove or something like that. But it's so ornate. You've got the different types of flowers. I know all the flowers. There's wild strawberries. There's Lily of the Valley, which was in Meghan and Kate's wedding bouquets. There is a wren, there's a robin.
I can know there's a lion, a unicorn, a bee, a robin. I mean,
the green man.
The green man, which is talking about rebirth, and this is again a new era, the chance to start something afresh, and I think that's what he's trying to purvey in this infancy of his reign.
Is Charles the green man? Is that what we're saying? Because he's a very environmentally friendly man. Is he the green man at the bottom?
It's a pagan.
It is. It's difficult.
But it's also very much used in churches. You see it around churches and church buildings. You do see the green man often as well. And it's definitely much more colourful than I thought it would be. I thought it would just be like cream and gold. And I thought it was cute. I liked it.
Yeah. Well, one person who did get or will be getting one of those invitations but won't be accepting is President Biden, because we now know that he will not be attending the coronation. But it's been confirmed that the US First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, will be among the 2,000 guests at Westminster Abbey. Russell, this is a sort of give with one hand and take with another. There has been some sort of criticism, people saying that President Biden is snubbing the king. Is he really snubbing the king?
No, I don't think so. I think Eisenhower didn't go to the late Queen's coronation. He's going to have a representative in the form of his wife. And I think that we have to have an appreciation for his age. I mean, Biden is 80 years old. He's travelling over to Northern Ireland in the coming weeks. I think his representatives do think that is a bit too much travelling for a man of his age, even though we're led to believe he's going to fight the next election. So I don't think a snubbing, some discussion about his Irish roots or what have you, but respectful for him to come to the funeral of a late Queen.
But there was also,
different.
At the funeral, he allegedly, we don't know, but it was said that some of the people working with him were a little bit put off that he was sat behind other European presidents. He was a couple of seats back than he thought he was, or we thought that he should have been.
They're all related, so that's probably why they were in the family section.
But it was significant that he's accepted an invitation for a state visit, and of course that's a big deal.
And that's probably more important, because that's where soft power and diplomacy comes into play. That's when real discussions will be had. So I think it's definitely more important that he partakes in a state visit than the coronation. Dr. Jill Biden will be there. I think that's representation enough.
And of course, we know that Jill Biden and Kate, Princess Catherine, are very close these days. They've worked together on early learning and intervention and so on in early years. So it'd be interesting to see if they make some time when Jill Biden's over here. I can imagine they might go and visit a school, do something like that. Very good to slightly enhance Catherine's reputation now as really somebody who can take on those issues.
Yeah, I think a lot of the family will be waiting to after the coronation to sort of release what the next stage of their platforms are.
And of course, somebody we now know who doesn't expect to be invited to get one of those ornate invitations to King Charles's coronation next month is Sarah Ferguson. She's even admitted that she'd prefer to watch the ceremony on TV anyway. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? We are hearing a lot more from Fergie than before. Interesting that she said no, she doesn't expect an invitation. She's happy to watch it in a onesie on her sofa. Do we really think she's not secretly hoping for an invitation?
I genuinely think that Sarah Ferguson is just like, it's whatever. I mean, she is literally everywhere at the moment. She's chatting a lot. She has a lot to say. And I think she's just kind of realised that she's in her kind of own zone at the moment. This is her wheelhouse, is writing her romance novels, talking about how she wants to support Prince Andrew and not getting invited to the coronation. That is the zone that she's in. And she's happy to be there. I genuinely think she's not that bothered.
Although, you know, if reports are to be believed, she's about to be made homeless or moved into, you know, downsized.
Yeah.
We know that she still lives at Royal Lodge with Prince Andrew. We understand that maybe they're going to be asked to vacate that 30-room house. So do you think this could be her way of saying, please love me, please don't evict me?
Please keep me on side as well.
Yeah.
I mean, she is the breadwinner of the family now. She's had a remarkable turnaround. Talk about PR masterclass. She's done it herself. She is still very, very popular in the public's eye because they see her as, I think they see her as a great survivor. I mean, this is an institution that chews up and spits people out, and I think once you scratch the surface of it, as is happening in so many aspects now, she is the one sort of constant role that she's managed to still keep her head round.
And of course, she's got the corgis.
She has the corgis, and she's been having some strange conversations about the corgis on television recently
Queen's
as well.
Ghost and it's. I mean, listen, she's great value, Fergie. She is great value.
I'm not surprised that she's not going to the coronation. No. She was cast out for about 30 years, but she did attend the Queen's funeral, I think.
And apparently it was Philip who really struggled with her. So once Philip had died, because the Queen and Fergie were always quite close.
As she's telling everybody at the moment about how, you know, in the Queen's final moments, she was still saying, you know, I'll look after your son, and that is. It's interesting. She's so loyal to Andrew that she's prepared to make public statements like this and get away with it.
Now, the other thing she's said this week is that if you step away from being a working royal, you can't have it both ways. You can't expect to be invited to weddings. So she wasn't talking about coronation. Was she talking about herself and Andrew there? Was she making a dig at Harry and Meghan? What was the subplot of that?
I think probably both, to be honest. I mean, she's talking about her own experience over the years, that you can't expect to have it both ways, but she's definitely referring to Harry and Meghan there as well, because, you know, they've stepped back as working royals, so it applies to them.
A bit of common sense, I thought, because she's gone on record before by saying that she doesn't have a bad word to say about them, and I think she probably has quite a lot of sympathy with their plight, because that happened to her. She was exiled, she knew exactly what it's like. But it is common sense. You can't have that. That's exactly what they were told in the first instance, and you know, we're still waiting to see whether they are in and out of the coronation.
Well, exactly. Talking of Harry and Meghan, they clearly have been invited. I think that has become clear. They are welcome. The official RSVP date, I think, has come and gone now, Matt, and we still don't know if they're coming. What do you think?
Well, they're a very special case, aren't they? We're spending a lot of time talking about who might or might not attend this coronation, and these are the ones that may have to wait till very close to the actual big day to see if they turn up. I think they will. I think they're having a lot of discussions. I think there's been a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of contacts back and forth about certain conditions and where they're going to be, where they're going to sit, how everything's going to act. I think they will regret it if they don't turn up. I think history won't look very kindly on them, but I think they're looking for some kind of reassurance or some kind of role within the weekend that they can actually feel part of this coronation.
And we now know that they won't have a role on the balcony. We know that the Queen, I think I'm right in saying, had 7 balcony shots, 7 moments of waving to the crowds. We don't know if Charles is going to come out that many times, but we do know that it's only working royals that are going to be on the balcony.
Only working royals, and I think that shows that Harry and Meghan were never in the plans to do that. Again, like you talk about, of course it makes sense. No Andrew, because you know his fall in disgrace has been well documented, and if you have him, you have the Harry and Meghan question, and I think again showing what the future of the monarchy is very important to Charles, and to have working royals is a perfect representation of that. So we're talking about demands of what the Sussexes have been making. I'm sure there are discussions behind the scenes, and I don't think we'll have some form of announcement that they are coming. We'll probably just see them turn up.
Well, you think we won't know till the day?
I think
or
we'll see them turn up in the days before, but I can't see there'll be some big announcement.
I think it will be like with the Platinum Jubilee, you know, 72 hours before. They'll just be
again,
there.
Genuinely, they should not want to detract from any of the occasion of what's going on, because they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Yeah. So it's best to just.
They didn't detract from any of the other events.
No.
You give them credit. The Platinum Jubilee, they were put very far away from William the King at the St Paul's Memorial, and they stayed in the background, and at the funeral as well they did what they were asked to do. When William and Catherine asked them to come out to see the flowers, they came out and did that, and when they were told to where to stand and where to walk, they did. And there is a blueprint there, I think, that they can attend and stop talking about the people who are in the crowd and help put the focus on the King and the Queen, because it's their big day.
And of course we know that it's also Archie's big day, isn't it? It's Archie's 4th birthday on the day of the coronation. And am I right in thinking for the Queen's funeral it was Lilibet's birthday, and they had that tea party?
It was the Platinum Jubilee.
It was the Jubilee.
It was at Frogmore. They had some members of the family around, the fringe members of the family, and lots of children. There was a lot of noise at Frogmore Cottage that day. And then there's some lovely pictures of Lilibet, and I think they took Lilibet to see the Queen on that day as well. So there is a way to make it work if everyone behaves themselves and doesn't be too silly.
Quite a big if. And of course you mentioned Frogmore there, and we saw Harry came over for that court case, of course, a few days ago, and we were told that he'd spent some time at Frogmore possibly packing it up, because again, talking of evictions, we know that they are going to be moving out of them. So that might still be a fear, still be a source of some sort of bad feeling. Yeah,
potentially, yes. But and also let's remember that he is going to be back later on this month after the coronation for another court case. So I think, there's definitely scope for them to be here. I think they will be here. I think, they probably are packing up Frogmore as well, but it doesn't mean that they'll never come back to the UK ever again, you know?
All right, well, still lots of questions to be answered about the coronation, but we certainly have had a few details this week. That is all we've got time for. My thanks to Afua and Matt and Russell. If you want to join in with the debate, make sure you leave a comment. We'll be back next week with all the latest on the royal family. Hope you can join us then. See you.